Let's drink apple cider to Rent a Girlfriend, the girlfriend and the boyfriend arc review. Yo, that tastes really good. One of the biggest questions that goes throughout the Rent a Girlfriend community is, has Kazuya grown at all as a character? And to be completely honest with you, I think most people would say no, especially with these recent chapters in 167 and 166. But after looking at this arc, I actually found that I think he has grown. And this idea that he's a simp and he can't do anything and all this type of stuff, I'm starting to kind of see the light here. I'm starting to kind of see what's happening with Kazuya, because his thoughtfulness has pretty much been there since the beginning, but we're not able to see that really as a positive trait of his until this very arc. And for those of you wondering if Mizuhara has grown, the answer is an astounding yes. Mizuhara has grown so much, both characters in this arc, and I can't wait to jump right into it. You see, Kazuya and Mizuhara have finally developed a bond that has transcended the transactional relationship, and this is the core feature of this arc. And I want to explain Kazuya's perspective of how he has grown, Mizuhara's perspective on how she has grown, and then talk about a couple panels of this arc that really demonstrate their new bond. So the first and most important thing in this arc, in my opinion, is this conversation between Ruka and Kazuya. When Kazuya finally brings up about what's going on with Mizuhara and stuff like that, and Ruka responds like this. Oh my gosh, like if you came up to me and said, hey, cheer up, kya? My heart's pounding just thinking about it. When Ruka says this line, she doesn't realize that she's saying something that's completely transformative. When Ruka does this expression of her joy, of how she would respond if Kazuya came up to her with concern and asked to figure out how to cheer her up, she gives this very honest expression. And how Ruka reacted to the idea that Kazuya cheers her up helps Kazuya finally understand what he must do. He's probably thinking, man, if Mizuhara would act like this, that would brighten her world. That would be awesome, because she's so sad. If I could do the same thing for Mizuhara, that would make my day. So I gotta give a lot of kudos to Ruka, because I believe that she is the reason that this entire arc even happened. You know how Kazuya usually struggles with his insecurities, right? He always feels like he's not good enough and all this type of stuff. And this can be evidenced in chapter 154 when he says, I helped her make the movie, but in the end, our relationship hasn't changed. I'm just her client. Kazuya doesn't even believe he can be more to Mizuhara than just a paying client. And Sumi is saying that that's the contrary. I mean, clearly, by chapter 154, you'd think that Kazuya would think that he has a better relationship with Mizuhara than he does. But Kazuya really, really struggles with this. However, after that big moment with Ruka, this is what he says during this inner monologue. If I'm not there for her now, referring to when Mizuhara's grandmother dies, if I'm not there for her now, what kind of boyfriend would I be? What kind of man would I be? When he says, what kind of boyfriend would I be? What kind of man would I be? That is almost assuming that Kazuya has a role in Mizuhara's life. This is a very, very different mindset than chapter 154, when he says, oh, I'm just her client. Kazuya's mind has finally started to believe that he has a significant role in Mizuhara's life. If he thought he was merely a client, what would he believe that he could do? Why would he say, oh, well, what kind of man would I be? He would just be a stranger to Mizuhara. But he's starting to believe something different. And the thing about this date that he goes on in this whole arc is the fact that the roles have now changed. In the first chapter, Kazuya goes on a date with Mizuhara so that she can be the perfect girlfriend for him as he's going through his breakup in this really, really bad experience caused by mommy. But in the girlfriend and the boyfriend, Kazuya is assuming the role of the ideal boyfriend for Mizuhara as she's going through her dark time when her grandmother dies. The roles have shifted. Instead of Mizuhara being the one to make Kazuya's day better, Kazuya is the one that's making Mizuhara's day better. He's now the ideal boyfriend. There's this one point in the arc where Kazuya asks this particular question. Did Mizuhara enjoy today? I know that sounds like a very simple question, but let's think about what that means. The fact that Kazuya is questioning whether Mizuhara enjoyed the day means that he wasn't doing this just for him. He was doing this for her. She's been the intention from the beginning. I know there are a couple moments in the story where Kazuya's like, I'm enjoying this so much. Like, is Mizuhara even enjoying herself at all? Like, I'm having too much fun. I know that happens a lot. But at the end of the day, Kazuya's intention is for Mizuhara, which shows his trait of thoughtfulness. And I think it's Kazuya's thoughtfulness that attracts Mizuhara to him in the first place. So let's talk about how Mizuhara is considerate in ways that go beyond a rental. In chapter 160, when they're having this conversation at the coffee table, Mizuhara brings up something outside of the rental relationship. Now, Mizuhara even says, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to bring this up, but I can't not thank you for the projector thing. I can't not thank you for coming in and kind of finalizing my dream for my grandmother, to see the film that I starred in. Because if it wasn't for Kazuya at that time, I don't think that would have been possible. But he made it happen. And Mizuhara goes out of her way to make sure that he knows that. She knows that she's on a rental date. She knows that she's not really supposed to talk about personal things, but she does it anyway. Why would she have done that if their relationship is just rental and client? It wouldn't have happened. It just wouldn't have happened. Mizuhara is starting to consider Kazuya's feelings and see him as more than just a client. There's another point where Kazuya takes her to this boutique and is going to buy her a dress and all this type of stuff. And the fact that she chooses the dress that Kazuya has his eyes on, as pervy as it may be, but the fact that she does that and wears it on the date in consideration for him and his interests. Now, the thing that she says here that's interesting is this: you've got good taste. It might sound simple, but let's think about the implications of that. Her saying you've got good taste means that she considers his tastes. She considers what he wants to do. She could have been selfish and just, taken whatever she wanted, had her catty eyes or whatever, just kind of picked out whatever she wanted. But no, she considered what Kazuya wanted as well. And on top of that, complimented him on his good taste. She didn't have to do that. She really didn't have to do that, but she did. Because she cares about Kazuya. So when Kazuya's at the movie theater with Mizuhara, there's this moment where she decides to put her hand on his hand. And on the surface, it seems like she's just doing that, to make the date special or whatnot for him. Go out of her way to do something nice for him, and all that type of stuff. But if you really look at her face, you'll see a face of concern. You'll see it's almost as if she's asking, is what I'm doing making you happy? This look isn't necessary. She could have just done it robotically because it's what she does. I mean, she takes guys out on dates, but she has this very genuine look of concern on her face. And I think this means that she really wants to make sure that Kazuya is having a good time too. Not just on as a client, but on a personal level. And finally, in chapter 163, when she's almost breaking down because Mizuhara sees this Chizuru and mini Mizuhara look alike. And when they're finally apart, when Kazuya and Mizuhara are apart, she's almost falling apart, which is the reason that she's even working anyway right after losing her grandmother. In 163, she can barely bring herself to even look at Kazuya. And if you asked why, it's because she trusts him so much. If you want to know more, just click on in the description, you'll see my chapter 163 review. Now, I just want to talk about two demonstrations of their bond. There's a moment in chapter 159, after they both watch this film, and Mizuhara is sharing how excited she is, and Kazuya's like, oh my gosh, I finally did it right, I did it right. My research is actually worth it. She's happy now. But he realizes this, and I started to think, it's almost impossible, right? Because if you're happy, I can't help but feel happiness too. I mean, when Mizuhara is so on cloud 9 about this movie, Kazuya can't help but realize that he himself is getting happy. And this shows that they have a bond. Because if Mizuhara could get happy, and he's just like, oh, well, you know, of course she's getting happy, or feel nothing, or feel, you know, slightly elated or something like that. But no, they're resonating. They're almost on the same level. I mean, look at their faces here. They are completely in sync with one another. It's absolutely incredible to see, and you can see all that in chapter 159. And then I want to talk about my favorite panel of the entire arc. Look at this right now. Look at just how content Mizuhara is. Now, at the moment I was asking, well, whether that's a true face because, you know, she's going through a lot in her mind, but at the same time, she's so content. And Kazuya is so content. And I love the construction artistically of this panel. And I just feel like this shows that they're resonating. And I'm skipping myself ahead a little bit, but if you look at this panel in 167, you'll see almost a similarity between the two. But really, this panel, guys, it's so beautiful. Just look at their faces. Now I've gotten to the point where I want to break down an inner monologue in chapter 157 with an outer monologue in chapter 164 to kind of sum up this video. Remember when I told you that Ruka's expression is pretty much the most important part of this arc because it's what gives Kazuya the vision of what he can do for Mizuhara? Well, he has this really big monologue right there at the end of the chapter. And I think there's a lot of similarities with what happens at the end of the girlfriend and the boyfriend arc in chapter 164. In 157, Kazuya says, when I was lost, when I was hurt, again and again, Mizuhara was right there beside me, keeping me positive, supporting me. He's showing here what Mizuhara's role in his life has been. And now he says, if I'm not there for her now, what kind of boyfriend would I be? What kind of man would I be? I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to cheer her up. This time, I'll be the one supporting her. Now, he's setting himself as the role of boyfriend. Now, he wants to do for her what she has done for him. Now let's jump to 164 and look at the similarities. When Kazuya is describing who his perfect girlfriend is, he says, my perfect girlfriend. Who, interestingly enough, I think Kazuya is trying to be the perfect boyfriend. So him using perfect girlfriend makes a lot of sense. She's pretty, stylish, kind. But when I'm being pathetic, she's always there to chew me out. And sometimes, she's even kind of scary. Remember when he says in 157, Mizuhara was right there beside me, keeping me positive, supporting me. there's definitely a similarity there. This is the inspiration to get him to actually say anything in chapter 164, because he wants to be that ideal boyfriend. Now, what does he say about Mizuhara? He says, but she's a bright light through and through. Her smile is incredible. She's cute, and sometimes she cries just a bit. She's usually really tough, even when times are hard. She doesn't let it show. All of this in the monologue that he says, he's describing his perfect girlfriend as the perfect boyfriend who took Mizuhara out on this date in response to her grandmother's death. Honestly, I think this arc is incredible. I think that Kazuya has come a long way in this story, but not as long as you might think. Kazuya's always been a sweet and thoughtful guy, but in this arc, he's finally been able to express that. And you might call him a simp, you might call him silly, and maybe sometimes he does make really stupid decisions, and Freak Out in 161 was definitely just a fan service chapter. But I loved it anyway. Kazuya may be all these things, but at the end of the day, he's extremely thoughtful, and finally in this arc, he's actually believing that he has a role in Mizuhara's life. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think of the review. This is my first time trying to tackle anything larger than this just one chapter or one episode or anything like that. Let me know if you want another arc review, and I guess time for a trash type beat. Y'all have a good one. Oh yeah.